The cold bit at my fingertips as I stood in my cramped Boston apartment, staring at the single suitcase that held my entire life. It was barely dawn, the kind of gray, biting morning that makes you question every choice you've ever made. My name is Sarah Mitchell, 29 years old, a licensed child therapist specializing in autism spectrum disorders. On paper, that sounds like something solid, something respectable. But the truth? My life was a patchwork of broken starts and dead ends, stitched together with stubbornness and a refusal to give up. Tonight, though, something was different. Tonight, I was standing on the edge of a decision that felt bigger than me. Bigger than the peeling wallpaper of my studio. Bigger than the hum of traffic outside that never let me sleep. I grew up in foster care, bounced between homes after losing my parents in a car crash at 9. Birthdays were just another day. Trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. And love was something you read about in books, not something you felt. I learned early to rely on myself, to keep people at arm's length, because no one ever stayed long enough to prove they were worth the risk. Maybe that's why I buried myself in psychology, in understanding why people hurt and how they heal. I clawed my way through Boston University, graduating top of my class, determined to be more than a statistic, more than another foster kid lost to the system. But the world doesn't care about your grit when it's busy grinding you down. My first job ended when my boss's accidental touches lingered too long. And I was branded overly sensitive for calling it out. The second crumbled under a false accusation of stealing meds from a clinic's supply room. Rumors spread faster than truth in healthcare. The third? I burned out, working 12-hour shifts with violent patients while my own anxiety ate me alive. Somewhere along the way, I stopped trying to stand out. No makeup, no fitted clothes, just baggy sweaters and hair pulled back tight. I even started wearing glasses I didn't need. Anything to blend into the background, to avoid the judgments that came before I could even speak. Being invisible was easier than being seen. Then came the call that changed everything. It was late, the kind of hour when only bad news or miracles call. The voice on the other end belonged to David Harper, a name I vaguely recognized from financial headlines, a widowed millionaire who'd built a fortune on high-stakes investments. His tone was steady, almost clinical, but there was a crack in it, a weight no amount of money could lift. 3 months, no days off. You'll live on my estate in Vermont and care for my daughter full-time. We'll handle everything else, he said. The job was to care for his 16-year-old daughter, Lily, who had a rare autoimmune disorder and Asperger's syndrome. The pay? 5 times what I'd ever earned. For someone like me, scraping by on fumes and stubbornness. It wasn't just an offer, it was a lifeline. Why me? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Because after so many rejections, it was hard to believe anyone would pick me. There was a pause, a breath that felt like it carried years of exhaustion. Your professor recommended you, David said. He said you care deeply and don't quit when things get tough. That's what Lily needs. Those words hit like a punch I didn't see coming. No one had ever described me like that. Not with belief, not with trust. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles ached, fighting back the urge to cry. I'll take it, I said, the words slipping out before doubt could stop them. The days before I left were a blur of packing and second-guessing. My life fit into one suitcase: jeans, sweaters, a pair of worn boots for the Vermont winter. I stood in my apartment one last time, the walls stained with memories of late-night doubts and unpaid bills. And told myself, this isn't running away, this is running towards something. At exactly 8 a.m., a black SUV pulled up outside. A man in his mid-30s stepped out, his smile warm enough to catch me off guard. Sarah Mitchell? I'm Matt Carter, your driver today, he said, his voice easy, like we were old friends. I handed him my suitcase, slid into the backseat, and watched Boston fade into a maze of concrete and noise. The 3-hour drive north was like watching the world transform. City streets gave way to rolling hills painted in late autumn gold. Then to forests shedding their leaves for winter. By the time we reached the private drive to David's estate, lined with maples clinging to their last fiery leaves, I felt like I'd crossed into another life. The air was sharp, the silence heavy, Like the world was holding its breath. My own breath caught, too, because this wasn't just a job. It was a chance to start over. To be more than the sum of my failures. David Harper was waiting on the front steps of the estate. A tall man with broad shoulders and hair just starting to gray. His eyes carried a weight I recognized instantly, the kind that comes from loving someone you're terrified of losing. Ms. Mitchell, thank you for coming on short notice, he said, his voice low but searching, like he was trying to see past my defenses. I clutched my bag, my only armor, and managed, thank you for the opportunity. My chest tightened with nerves. This wasn't an interview. It was a commitment. 3 months with no way out once I said yes. Inside, the estate was nothing like I'd imagined. Yes, it was grand, polished wood floors, vaulted ceilings, but it wasn't cold or sterile. Family photos lined the walls. David holding a baby wrapped in pink. An older boy hugging a little girl. A woman with a smile so warm it hurt to look at. His late wife, I assumed, though I didn't ask. Some grief you can see from a mile away. David led me to his study. A cozy room with bookshelves and a low fire in the hearth. He gestured to a leather chair, then sat across from me. Hands clasped. I need to be clear about what this job entails. He began. Lily is 16. She has a rare autoimmune disorder that leaves her fragile and exhausted. On top of that, she's on the autism spectrum, high functioning, but withdrawn. She hasn't connected with anyone in years. His eyes flicked to a photo on his desk. A girl with pale blonde hair and solemn eyes. Your role isn't to fix her. That's not possible. Your role is to be there. To support her. To give her moments of joy. His jaw tightened. We don't have many of those. I nodded slowly. What about school? Friends? He shook his head. She's homeschooled. Mostly online. She hasn't had friends since she was 8. Honestly, I think she gave up trying. And I don't know how to reach her anymore. His voice cracked. Just for a second, before he steadied it. I've worked with kids on the spectrum before. I said softly, I can't promise miracles, Mr. Harper, but I can promise effort. He looked at me, something like relief flickering in his eyes. That's all I'm asking. Effort and presence. You'll live here full-time. No days off for 3 months unless it's an emergency. Lily needs consistency. Someone who won't disappear. He paused, then added, your pay will reflect the sacrifice. 5 times the standard rate for in-home therapy. 5 times? My heart stuttered. That kind of money could erase my debts. Give me a chance to breathe. Maybe even let me dream for once. That's generous, I said, keeping my voice steady. David leaned forward. It's not about generosity. It's about Lily. She's everything to me. And I won't apologize for wanting the best for her. There was no arrogance in his tone. Just raw honesty and exhaustion. The kind I'd seen in foster parents who cared too much to let go. I swallowed hard, asking about her medical routine. Allergies, triggers, emergency contacts. He answered each question with precision. A man used to controlling chaos. When we finished, he stood, extending his hand. Do we have an agreement? I took a breath, then nodded. Yes, we do. A woman named Ellen O'Connell, with warm red hair and a brisk Irish lilt, led me to the guest wing. I've been with the family 30 years, she said, placing my suitcase on a quilt-covered bed. Raised my own son here, too. If you need anything, you find me. Her smile was kind, grounding. The room was simple but welcoming, with a wide window overlooking a forest glowing amber in the late autumn light. It's beautiful here, I said, and Ellen nodded. Beautiful, yes, but quiet. You'll get used to it. Dinner's at 6, don't be late. She winked and left, leaving me with the stillness. At dinner, I met the rest of the household. The dining room was warm, with a long oak table and fresh flowers in a vase. It didn't feel like a mansion meant to impress, it felt like a home. David sat at the head, his crisp shirt at odds with the softness in his eyes when Ellen placed a steaming dish of roasted chicken before him. To his right was a young woman, maybe mid-20s, with glossy dark hair and a uniform that hugged her figure a little too tightly. This is Jessica, David said. She handles the upstairs rooms and some of Lily's laundry. Jessica gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. So, you're the new caretaker, she said, her voice sweet but sharp. Welcome. I matched her politeness. Thank you. Her gaze lingered, sizing me up, before she turned back to her plate. Across from her sat a man with sun-weathered skin and strong hands. Tom O'Connell. He introduced himself, his faint Irish accent echoing Ellen's. Landscaping and maintenance. Ellen sat beside me, her chatter filling the room with stories of David's late wife, who loved planting tulips, and Lily's childhood before her health declined. Matt, the driver, joined halfway through, his easy laugh lightening the mood. What struck me was how they all ate together, no hierarchy. Just family, or something close to it. But I noticed Jessica watching David, her eyes lingering like she wanted him to notice her back. He didn't, focused instead on asking me about my experience, my credentials, whether I'd done full-time in homework before. After dinner, David led me to meet Lily. The hallway was lined with bookshelves and more photos, Lily as a toddler. Golden curls and wide blue eyes. Clutching a toy giraffe. She'd been vibrant once, but David had warned me she was different now. Locked inside herself, he knocked softly on her door before opening it. Lily, I'd like you to meet someone. Her room was dim, curtains drawn, the air tinged with antiseptic and lavender. Lily sat on her bed, thin shoulders hunched, fingers twisting her sweater. She didn't look up. This is Sarah, David said gently. She'll be staying with us. Helping out. A small nod. Barely there. Sarah's here to make things easier. Like Ellen does. He added. Another nod. Just as faint. David touched my arm, guiding me out. Don't take it personally, he said in the hall. She doesn't connect easily. It's part of her condition. I nodded. I understand. And I did. Kids like Lily didn't push people away out of spite. They did it because the world had pushed them too hard. That night, lying in bed, the quiet hum of the heating system wrapping around me, I thought about Lily's silent nod, David's desperate hope, and my own reasons for saying yes. I'd spent years running, from foster homes, from failed jobs, from people who let me down. But here, in this house on a Vermont hill, I felt something stir. Not just fear, not just doubt, but purpose. For the first time in a long time, I wanted to stay. The next morning, David asked me to meet him in his study before starting with Lily. He leaned against his desk, the morning light cutting sharp lines across his face. Sarah, before you begin, I need to tell you about Lily, not the medical file. The truth. I sat, bracing myself. She was our miracle baby. He started, his voice low. My wife, Rachel, and I tried for years for a second child. We had our son, Ethan, but Rachel wanted a girl so badly. When she got pregnant, it was supposed to be our happiest time. But it wasn't. His jaw tightened. Rachel had a heart condition. Pregnancy made it worse, but she refused to terminate. She wanted Lily, said she'd fight for her. She gave birth, and a week later, I buried her. Heart failure. The room went still. The only sound the faint tick of a grandfather clock in the hall. I wanted to say something, but words felt useless. David continued. Lily was fragile from the start. We found out she had an autoimmune disorder. Her body attacks itself. Sarah, like it can't tell what's safe. Then, at 3, we got the Asperger's diagnosis. She's brilliant in some ways, but the world overwhelms her. Puberty hit, and her health crashed. She barely speaks now, hasn't smiled in over 2 years. I'm losing her, day by day. His voice broke, and he turned to the window, staring at the frost-tipped trees. I don't want miracles, he said. I want someone who won't give up on her, who can give her a reason to stay connected. I can't promise to fix this, I said softly, but I can promise to stay steady. David's shoulders eased, just a fraction. That's all I ask. Be patient. She'll push you away at first. He handed me a binder, Lily's routines, meds, therapy notes. Read this, and if she connects, even a little, let me know. It'd mean everything. I took the binder, its weight grounding me. I'll do my best, I said, and meant it. My first day with Lily was heavy with silence. I knocked on her door. my voice soft, like I was coaxing a skittish animal. Good morning, Lily. May I come in? She sat on her bed, legs curled under, clutching a pillow, her pale hair falling over her face. No response. I thought we could have breakfast together. I said, you don't have to talk. Just sit with me if you want. Silence. I sat on the floor, not too close, and talked about small things, the frost on the windows, how Ellen's scones smelled like cinnamon, how my old apartment was never this quiet. For 20 minutes, she didn't move. Then, without a word, she stood and walked past me to the kitchen. It wasn't much, but it was something. Breakfast was quiet. David kissed Lily's head, but she didn't react. Ellen filled our plates, giving me a look that said, this is normal. Jessica walked in, her uniform pristine, and shot me a glance over her coffee mug. So, how's day one? She asked. Her tone syrupy. Just starting, I said, keeping my smile neutral. She tilted her head, studying me like a rival. You'll see, Lily's particular. Not everyone lasts here. David's eyes flicked to her. A silent warning, but she just shrugged and left, leaving tension in her wake. Over the next few days, I built a routine with Lily. I read aloud while she sketched in her notebook, hummed softly while opening her curtains a little more each day. Sometimes she left the room when I entered, but other times she stayed, silent but present. In my world, presence is progress. Evenings were harder. Her condition left her exhausted, sometimes tearful, emotions she couldn't explain. I sat with her, steady, reminding myself that emotions were the doorway, not the enemy. David watched from the sidelines, his expression unreadable. But once, in the hall, he murmured, "You're patient. That matters." It was the closest thing to praise I'd heard from him. Jessica, though, was a constant thorn. She never said anything outright, but her glances were sharp, her comments laced with doubt. One evening, she mentioned in front of Lily that most caretakers don't last a month. Lily stiffened, pulling her blanket tighter, and something in me snapped, not anger, but resolve. I wouldn't let Jessica's words become truth. On the 5th day, I tried something new. I brought a small box of paints, hoping Lily might engage. She ignored me at first, but when I set the box near her chair, she lashed out, knocking it to the floor. Her breath came fast. Panicked, I froze, lowering myself to her level. "It's okay, Lily. I'm sorry. I'll put them away." For a moment, I thought she'd scream. Instead, she curled into herself, whispering, "Don't change things." My chest tightened. "Okay," I said. "No changes unless you say so." Slowly, she uncurled, watching as I picked up the paints and sealed the box. She nodded, almost imperceptibly. That night, exhausted but determined, I decided I wasn't going anywhere, not for Jessica, not for fear, not for my own doubts. Lily deserved someone who stayed. By the second week, I could feel Lily's walls, not just see them, but sense their weight. She rarely spoke, rarely looked at me, but she listened. I knew because when I shared stories of my foster care days, a feeling like I didn't belong. Her hands stilled, her breathing slowed. Connection needs an anchor, and words weren't enough. One evening, over coffee with David, I suggested a therapy animal. A dog, specifically, a Newfoundland. They're gentle, trained for calmness. It could help Lily regulate stress. He looked skeptical. "We've never had pets. She might not handle the unpredictability." I smiled. "That's the beauty of therapy dogs. They're steady, like a living teddy bear." He considered it, then nodded. "If you think it's worth a shot, do it. Just don't push her." By Friday, we had a visitor, a 2-year-old Newfoundland named Bear. His black fur gleaming, his eyes soft and patient. When I brought him into Lily's room, she froze, her eyes darting between me and Bear. "He's friendly," I said. "Want me to take him out?" She whispered, so soft I barely heard. "He can stay." Bear took slow steps, then sat at her feet, waiting. Lily's hands trembled, hovering over his fur, then touched him, once. Then again, longer. Her eyes flicked to me, blue and uncertain, and I saw it. A spark of curiosity. Not joy yet, but something alive. Bear became part of our routine. He lay beside Lily as she sketched. Followed her to the kitchen. Curled up at her bed at night. She changed, subtly, but enough to make my heart ache. She whispered to Bear when she thought no one was listening. Short phrases like, "Good boy," or, "Stay." One morning, I found her brushing his coat. So focused she didn't notice me. When she did, she said quietly, "He likes it." I nearly froze. It was her longest sentence to me. "He does," I said, smiling. "And he likes you." Her lips twitched. Almost a smile, before she returned to brushing. That night, David stopped me in the hall. "She told me about Bear," he said, his voice rough. "She hasn't shared anything with me in years." "Thank you, Sarah." I shook my head. Bear's doing the work. But inside, I knew this was a turning point, for Lily. For me. For this house that was starting to feel like more than a job. The frost clung to the windows of the Harper estate, sparkling like diamonds in the pale Vermont dawn. Sarah Mitchell stood in the quiet of her guest room, her breath visible in the chilly air, her heart pounding with a mix of hope and fear. She'd been here for 2 weeks. And already, this place, this sprawling, warm house on a hill, was starting to feel like more than a job. It was starting to feel like a chance at something she'd never had, a home. At 29, Sarah was no stranger to starting over. A child therapist specializing in autism spectrum disorders. She'd built a life from the ashes of a childhood spent in foster care, where love was a rumor and trust was a risk. But the past 2 weeks had been different. Here, in this house filled with grief and guarded hope, she was finding pieces of herself she thought she'd lost forever. It started with Bear, a 2-year-old Newfoundland dog whose black fur gleamed like midnight and whose eyes held a gentleness that seemed to see straight through you. Sarah had suggested a therapy animal on a whim. A desperate idea born from watching Lily Harper, the 16-year-old daughter of millionaire David Harper, retreat further into her shell. Lily's rare autoimmune disorder left her fragile, her body waging war against itself, while her Asperger's syndrome made the world a maze of overwhelming noise and unspoken rules. She hadn't smiled in years, hadn't spoken more than a few words to anyone, including her father, David, a man whose wealth couldn't buy back his daughter's joy or his late wife's presence. Had looked skeptical when Sarah proposed the idea. "A dog?" he'd said, his brow furrowing. "Lily doesn't handle unpredictability." But Sarah had pressed, her voice steady despite the nerves. "Therapy dogs are trained for calm. A Newfoundland is like a living blanket, gentle, steady. It could give her something to hold onto without the pressure of people." David had studied her, then nodded. "If you think it's worth trying, do it. Just go slow." That was how Bear arrived, lumbering into Lily's dim, lavender-scented room like a quiet giant. Sarah held her breath as Lily froze, her pale hands clutching her sweater, her blue eyes darting between Sarah and the dog. "He's friendly," Sarah said softly. "Want me to take him out?" For a moment, she braced for a meltdown. Instead, Lily whispered, so faint it was almost lost, "He can stay." Bear took 2 slow steps, then sat at her feet, his massive head resting on the floor, waiting. Lily's fingers hovered, trembling, then brushed his fur, once. Hesitantly, then again, longer. Her eyes flicked to Sarah. A spark of something new in them, curiosity. Fragile but alive. It was the first crack in the wall Lily had built around herself. And Sarah felt her own heart stutter with hope. From that day, Bear became a bridge. He followed Lily everywhere, her room, the kitchen, even the back porch on warmer afternoons. She started whispering to him when she thought no one was listening. Soft words like, "Good boy," or, "Don't go." One morning, Sarah found her sitting cross-legged on the floor, brushing Bear's coat with a focus so intense it was like she was pouring her soul into each stroke. When Lily noticed Sarah in the doorway, she didn't flinch. Instead, she said quietly, "He likes it." Sarah's breath caught. It was the longest sentence Lily had spoken to her. "He does," she replied, smiling. "And he likes you." Lily's lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but close enough to make Sarah's chest ache with possibility. The change wasn't just in Lily. The entire house seemed to breathe easier with Bear's presence. Lily started leaving her room more, her sketchbook tucked under her arm, Bear trailing like a loyal shadow. She'd sit at the kitchen table, sketching while Ellen O'Connell, the red-haired housekeeper who'd been with the family for 30 years, hummed Irish lullabies and stirred soup. David watched from the sidelines, his eyes carrying a mix of hope and fear, like he was afraid to believe the change was real. One evening, he pulled Sarah aside, his voice rough. She told me about Bear today. She hasn't shared anything with me in years. What did you do? Sarah shook her head. It's not me. It's Bear, and it's Lily choosing to let him in. But David's gaze held hers, steady and searching. It's you, too, Sarah. You're giving her a reason to try. The Harper estate wasn't like the cold, sterile mansions Sarah had imagined when she first accepted the job. It was a home, warm and lived in, with polished oak floors and family photos that told stories of love and loss. Ellen, with her brisk warmth and stories of raising her son alongside David's children, was the heart of the house. Tom O'Connell, Ellen's husband, handled landscaping with a quiet strength, his son-weathered hands as steady as his faint Irish accent. Matt Carter, the driver who'd picked Sarah up from Boston, brought an easy laugh that lightened even the heaviest days. They all ate together at the long oak table. No hierarchy, just a family stitched together by time and care. David joined them, asking about Tom's greenhouse repairs or Matt's trips to Burlington, his wealth never overshadowing the way he listened. Really listened, to the people around him. But not everyone was welcoming. Jessica, the young housekeeper with glossy dark hair and a smile that cut like glass, watched Sarah with barely concealed resentment. She'd drop comments like knives, cloaked in sweetness. So, how's it going with Lily? She'd ask, her tone implying failure was just a matter of time. One evening, in front of Lily, she said, most caretakers don't last a month here. It's not for everyone. Lily stiffened, her fingers tightening around her fork. And Sarah felt a surge of defiance. She wouldn't let Jessica's words take root. I'm here for the long haul, Sarah said, her voice calm but firm. Her eyes locked on Jessica's. The other woman shrugged, but the tension lingered, a silent challenge. Sarah's own past wasn't so easily left behind, either. A week into her third week, her best friend in Boston invited her to a farewell party. She was moving to Seattle. David surprised her by insisting she go. We'll manage for a day. You deserve it, he said. So Sarah went, stepping back into the city's noise and chaos. It felt foreign now, like a life she'd outgrown. But then she saw him, Jake. Her ex-boyfriend, the one who'd treated her heart like a bet with his friends. He grinned, all charm and cruelty. Sarah Mitchell, hiding out in the middle of nowhere. Huh? Still trying to save the world? His words stung, dragging up old shame. She froze, ready to walk away, when a voice cut through. Back off. It was Tom, there for a supply run, his presence steady as oak. Jake muttered something and slunk away. Not worth the fight. You okay? Tom asked, his voice gentle. Sarah nodded, her throat tight. Just ghosts I didn't expect. He studied her, then said, you don't owe them anything. Not your time, not your silence. His words broke something in her, loosening the grip of old wounds. When Sarah returned to the estate, Lily was waiting by the door, Bear at her side. You came back, she said softly, her eyes on the floor. Sarah's heart swelled. I promised I would. Lily's lips trembled, and then, for the first time in years, she smiled, small, fleeting, but real. David, standing behind her, gripped the doorway, his eyes bright with unshed tears. Ellen, in the kitchen, whispered, well, I'll be. The moment was fragile, like the first snowflake of winter. But it changed everything. Lily's transformation grew from there. She started joining the family more, sketching at the kitchen table, leaving notes for Ellen, thanks for the soup, or for Sarah, Bear needs a new brush. They were small, but David kept every one, tucking them into a drawer like treasures. One evening, on the back porch, Lily sat with Sarah and Tom, Bear's head in her lap, and asked out of nowhere, do you ever feel like you don't belong anywhere? Sarah's breath caught. All the time. For a long time, she admitted, I used to feel like I was always on the outside. But then I found people who didn't make me earn my place. They just let me be. Lily looked at her. Really looked. Her eyes searching. I want that, she whispered. Sarah leaned forward. You have it, Lily. Right here. With your dad, Ellen, Tom, Bear, me. We're not going anywhere. Lily's fingers curled into Bear's fur. And she smiled again, this time reaching her eyes. David, watching from the doorway, turned away, blinking hard. On Christmas Eve, David invited Sarah to the family dinner. We keep it small, he said. Just us, Ellen, Tom. But you're part of us now. The words hit her like a warm wave. Dinner was simple, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, Ellen's apple pie, but it felt like everything. Lily joined in a toast, whispering, to family, her first time speaking at the table. After, by the fire, she handed Sarah a sketch. Sarah reading by Lily's window. Bear at her feet, Lily in the corner, watching. Across the bottom, in neat letters, she'd written, thanks for staying. Sarah's throat closed, and she pulled Lily into a careful hug. Lily stiffened, then hugged back, hesitant but real. David turned to the fire, brushing his eyes. Later, he found Sarah in the kitchen. You've given me back my daughter, he said, his voice raw. She did that herself, Sarah replied. I just didn't leave. He studied her, then said, I meant what I said earlier. If you want to stay past your contract, this house is your home. Permanently. The word, home, landed like a stone in still water. Rippling through her, Sarah, who'd never had a permanent anything, nodded. I'd like that. That winter, the Harper estate glowed, not with decorations, but with life. Lily's smiles, still rare, were treasures. Sarah, who'd spent years running, found herself planting roots. She wasn't just helping Lily heal. Lily, Bear, David, Ellen, Tom, they were healing her, too. In the quiet of a Vermont winter, surrounded by snow and unexpected laughter, Sarah found what she'd never dared hope for. A family. A purpose. A place to belong.